I feel like, ever since I've been working, I've always kind of dealt with difficult bosses, I've always dealt with difficult managers, and I don't know what the hell that shit is about, but I got another story for y'all about one of my bosses, okay, that I used to work with. So this happened back when I was probably 19. I want to say, I don't even think I was 20 years old. But I started to work at Old Country Buffet, okay? And I got this job through a friend that got me right in there. I didn't even have to even do an interview or anything. She put in a good word for me and they just hired me right on the spot, okay? So when I started working there, I worked first shift for orientation, So my manager that I worked with was James. Now James was a very cool ass supervisor. One of the few that I have had, okay? Very cool, chill supervisor, manager, whatever. He was like one of the first managers to work for the Old Country Buffet in the area that I live. He started working there right when the Old Country Buffet opened up, So on first shift, I did my orientation with James. It was real cool, real easy. I worked there as a waitress, okay? So I worked, Thursday through Sunday. Now, Saturdays and Sundays, I made more money on Saturdays and Sundays, okay, on my orientation. So once I got finished with orientation, James told me that I have to go to second shift. And I'm like, I really don't want to work second shift because I don't like working in the evening. I'd rather work in the morning and get it out the way. You feel me? So I was venting to the person that helped me get the job. I'm telling her like, man, I really don't want to work second shift. I like working first shift. And she was like, girl, no. She was like, take your ass on to second shift. You're going to make good bread, especially on Saturdays and Sundays. You're going to make good bread as a waitress. You're going to make good tips on the weekends working second shift. So I'm like, okay. All right, now you got me listening now. Okay, you saying I'm gonna make more money than what I make on first shift and tips. Okay, let's try it out. Okay, so I go on second shift and I, instantly notice the increase in pay, the increase in tips. Okay, I'm loving it. So on second shift, I had a different supervisor named Kevin. So, one thing I can't say about Kevin his ass was fine. I'm talking about fine, okay? He had like my skin complexion, light brown eyes, kept a really nice haircut. Really handsome. When I first met him, that's the first thing I said. I'm like, ooh, this guy is really handsome. But as I started to work with him more, I noticed that he was a flirt. And I mean, this guy was around there flirting with all the female employees. I'm talking about he's standing behind them, basically with his pee-pee pressed up against their ass, trying to show them stuff to do. He'd be standing in front of a girl all in her face, just smiling and, like being flirty, fixing up her clothes and stuff. But it ain't like, in a helpful way. It's more like in a sexual way. He touching on the girls and they just eating it up. You feel me? Every time he come around them, they're just cheesing and laughing at all his corny jokes and all of this shit. So when I peeped that, I'm like, oh no, honey, I'm not finna be another one. I'm not finna be another one in this bunch. You feel me? So when I seen that he was a flirty guy, I kept it real short with him, as you should anyway. When you dealing with your supervisor, it should be straight business. You feel me? But I really, just kept it short with him, but I was still respectful. I mean, he is my supervisor. I just did my job, and forget all the BS. We don't need to be sitting up here giggling and doing all this extra stuff. You feel me? And he tried to be flirty with me. He tried all of that shit, but I, just kept it short, kept it professional with him, but never was disrespectful or anything. And it was like, once he seen that I wasn't going for that, that's when his attitude changed towards me. And he became real short. And when he would talk to me, he'd talk to me with aggression and shit, and I picked up on it. And I just said, okay, the reason why he being like this is because I'm not flirting back with him, which this shouldn't even be an issue because you're my supervisor. You feel me? But he was just so used to everybody and they mama in there eating them up. You feel me? It's smiling and cheesing and shit. And that wasn't for me. But I will say though, that if he wasn't a flirt and all his attention was just focused on me, then we could have probably made something happen. I'm not even gonna lie to you. But once I seen that he was a big old flirt, I said, oh no, I'm gonna just keep it real, professional with his ass. Okay. So like I said, when he seen I wasn't going for it, he was just real short with me. We would have new things that we were implementing and stuff. And I would have to come to him and ask him questions about it. And he'd just be like, yeah, this is how you do it. Just wasn't no enthusiasm by him, no enthusiasm. There was nothing. He was just real short and cold when he was talking to me. And I just instantly noticed that. And I'm like, okay, but I know why you doing it. You feel me? So I'm working, getting all this good money on Saturdays and Sundays, honey. Okay. Made good money and tips on Saturdays and Sundays, right? So one Saturday, it was so busy in there, which is typically like that. But this was like a really busy day. Every time we cleaned the table, more people came in. It was just like we was pushing people in and out, in and out. And it was just so busy. So I seen this group of construction workers come in, and when I seen them, I said, oh, I got to get their table. It was about 6 of them. I'm like, oh, I need to get that table. Okay. So they come in, get seated, and I instantly run over there, and we kicking it, we cooling. The guys, they making me laugh. I'm making sure their tables are cleaned off, making sure that I keep their drinks full. I'm taking really good care of them, and they were just real cool, funny, real respectful guys, So they wasn't the only table I had. I had like 4 tables that I was working, So I clean off their table. I take, the dishes and shit, back to the little area where we have to scrape the plates and stuff and get all the dishes stacked up and all that shit. So by the time I get done doing all of that, I come out and they're gone. And I'm like, well, damn, they didn't say bye, but it is what it is. I just keep moving around, and helping my other tables and shit. And so I look up and I see Kevin, heading towards me and shit. So I'm looking like, okay, what this nigga want, And when he's walking towards me, his face looking all turned up and shit. It almost looked like I did something wrong. I'm like, what this nigga want? As he's approaching me, he looking all jacked up in the face and shit. So I'm like, what happened? Did I do something wrong? The way he was heading towards me and shit. So when he got up to me, he was like, Keiki, yeah, you getting a lot of attention on this floor. You getting a lot of attention today on this floor, man. You getting a lot of attention. And just the way he was saying it was like coming across to me like he was irritated or something, But this has been his attitude. But he really looked upset. Like, you getting a lot of attention out here on the floor. He just kept saying that, yeah, you getting a lot of attention from our customers out here. And I'm like, okay. So he reached in his pocket and he pull out a big wad of cash and he handed it to me. He like, yeah, this is from the table that has the construction workers. They told me to give you your tip because, they didn't see you out on the floor. So they just handed me your tip and told me to give it to you. And he was like, yeah, they just had so much to say about you too. They had so much to say about you. And I'm like, I just looked at him and took my tip and stuffed it down in my motherfucking bra and kept it pushing. And I'm saying to myself, like, why this man seem like he upset because people were saying good things about me and left me a tip, you know. So I keep doing my job and shit. And finally I get a break. So I sit down and I pull my cash out and I count that cash out and I got $100 tip from them. And I'm just like, whoa, okay, damn, okay. You feel me? So I finish out my shift and shit. And, you know, that following week I come back to work. And, you know, Thursday I come in and I look at the schedule, which is something that I didn't really do often because I worked as a waitress. So I didn't need to look at the schedule to see where I'm working or anything. But for some reason, you know, that Thursday I came in and I just looked at the schedule really quick because the schedule right next to the where you clock in at. So I just peeked at the schedule and I had to do a double take. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm on the hot bar today. And when you work it was weird because when you work on a hot bar, you got to dress different than what you dress when you work as a waitress. So I'm like, shit, I'm not even dressed to work on the hot bar, you know. So I end up, you know, going to get me an apron and just throwing it over my, you know, clothes or whatever. And I'm saying to myself, I'm like, damn, you know, I'm on a hot bar. But I said, hey, it is what it is. And a hot bar is, you know, the bar that has the food on it. And my job was to make sure that I change out the food when the pans are empty and shit, which was something that I did not like to do. It was so hot. I would get burned from the steam and shit like that. Like, I just did not like to work on the hot bar. But every now and again, we would have to work on the hot bar if somebody called in. So I said, well, maybe somebody called in today. So that's why, you know, I'm on a hot bar. So, you know, I'll work that shift, you know, and I'm like, you know, it is what it is. So Friday I come in and I just glanced at the schedule again and I see that I'm working the hot bar again. And I'm like, okay, so what the hell is going on? I'm like, okay, this day 2 of me working a hot bar. I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, we got the same people here. Like, ain't nobody called in. Like, why am I on a hot bar? But once again, I ain't complaining about it. Hey, I'm just going to do my job, you know. But as I'm working that Friday, I'm saying to myself, now they better not put me on a schedule. They better not put me on a hot bar on Saturday or Sunday. They better not put me on a hot bar on Saturday or Sunday because those are the money-making days. You feel me? So I finish up Friday. So I come in Saturday, glance over at the schedule again. I'm on the hot bar again. So now I'm irritated now. Now I'm irritated because I'm saying to myself, like, why am I being put on the hot bar? Everybody's here. Nobody called in. Why am I on the hot bar? So I work like half my shift working on a hot bar and shit. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go talk to Kevin as because I'm not understanding why I'm being put on a hot bar. So I go into the office and when, you know, I walk in, you know, I tap on the, you know, door frame and he had his back turned towards me. So he's swivel around in the chair and I'm like, Kevin, and he like, yeah, like just so much aggression in his voice, you know, yeah, what's up? I'm like, you know, for the last couple of days, I've been put on the hot bar. And I'm like, you know, I got this job to be a waitress. And he looked at me and was like, that's where we need you. We need you on the hot bar. I said, but that's not what I got hired for. I got hired to be a wait. We need you on a hot bar. That's where we need you. He cut me off and everything. We need you on a hot bar. And I'm like, okay. And I just walked out. I'm like, this nigga has been putting me on a hot bar ever since them people came in here. That group of men came in here. I don't know what the fuck they said to him. But whatever they said to him about me and the fact that they left me a big tip, that really pissed him off. I said, this man, it took me off of waiting tables ever since this happened. Ever since that happened. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to finish out this shift here. And I said, they better not do it Sunday. Sunday, if I get put on hot bar, I'm leaving. I'm not going to work here no more. Because I can't stand working on this hot bar. I can't stand this shit. So as my shift is ending, you know, he come out and say, Keiki, we need you to clean the bathroom. And I'm like, okay. Which I wasn't tripping about that, because every now and again we would have to clean the bathroom too. Every like couple of months we would like alternate cleaning the bathroom and shit. You know, so I'm like, okay. So I clean up the bathroom and shit. So I said, Sunday, they put me on this motherfucking hot bar. I am not working here anymore. Sunday come. Guess where the fuck I'm at? On a hot bar. And I said, you know, this is it for me. This is my last day. Now this day, I'm in there working a hot bar. I'm pulling them trays out hard as hell. I'm irritated as hell. Moving the food, doing all that shit, getting burnt, all this shit, because I'm just so irritated with being out there. Especially because I see the flow is packed. So I'm seeing these waitresses, they picking up their money and shit, rolling up their money. They got big old wads of cash and shit. And I'm saying to myself, that's supposed to be me out there. That's supposed to be me, bitch. I said, I've had enough of this shit. This gonna be my last day. I'm over there giving the waitresses, they ain't did shit to me. I'm looking at them, giving them the stink eye, because I'm supposed to be out there. You feel me? But, you know, I finished my shift, okay? And I said, this is it. Because obviously this supervisor got a problem with me. He going to keep on putting me on a hot bar. And he know this is not what I got hired for. So Monday come. I go into Old Country Buffet in the morning because I know that James is working. So I come into the office and I'm like, hey, James, I'm here to put in my resignation. You know, I'm here to leave. This is my last day here. And he's fall back in the chair like, what? What's going on, Keiki? What happened? What's going on? You're a good worker. Like, why are you leaving us? And I said, because of Kevin fucking ass. I said, Kevin got a problem with me because I'm not flirting with him. And then, you know, a couple of days ago, I had a group of men that came in and I was waiting their table and they left me a good tip. And I don't know what the hell they said to him about me. You know, but whatever they said, it irritated him. And I said, he keeps putting me on the schedule to work the hot bar. And he was like, why he doing that? You know, I'm like, because he's irritated because I don't flirt with him like all these other females do. All he do is sit up here and flirt with everybody. And then he got irritated because these people left me a big tip. You know, he like, oh man, that's just so messed up. I said, so at the end of the day, if I can't go back to first shift with you, I said, I'm going to leave. This is going to be my last day today. And he said, well, Keiki, unfortunately, he's like, unfortunately, you can't work first shift because first shift is like kind of a seniority thing. You know, everybody's working first shift. They was on night shift and they end up getting pushed to first shift because of their seniority. He was like, so we don't have no openings on first shift. And I said, well, that means that I'm not going to work here anymore. He like, oh man. I mean, James was like getting teary-eyed talking to me. I said, James, I can't keep working with a supervisor that got something against me and I'm not even doing nothing. Just because I'm not flirting with him and he got irritated because somebody left me a big tip. You know, I said, I can't keep working under this pressure. Then he want to make me clean up the bathrooms, even though he only made me clean the bathroom one time. But I threw that in there too. I'm like, this nigga keep making me want to make me clean the bathrooms and shit. And he was like, making you clean the bathrooms? I said, yes, making me clean the bathrooms too. You know, and he was like, well, I'm just so sad to see you go, Keiki. Like, you really is a good worker. And he's like, unfortunately, you know, I only control the first shift schedule, you know, so he does second shift schedule, so he puts people where he feel the need to. And I said, well, he's just purposely putting me out on the hot bar so that I don't make the money that I want to make on being a waitress. I said, he got so irritated with, you know, them people leaving me a big tip and shit, this nigga gon' just completely take me off the schedule to wait tables, you know. And he was like, man, I'm just so sorry that happened to you. I'm just so messed up about this. I ain't know Kevin was around here flirting with everybody and making it difficult for you and stuff like that. And he was like, I understand if you want to leave, you know. He's like, I totally understand. So he went ahead and printed off my paperwork, and I signed my paperwork to end my employment with them. Because I said, man, I can't do this shit, you know. So fast forward like 3 years. So I was hanging out with a friend of mine, you know, and we made plans to go out in the evening and shit. So right before I was getting ready to leave out to go pick her up and shit, she was like, she called me and she was like, do you mind if my sister come with us? And I said, yeah, it's no problem. I had met her sister a couple of times. She was cool, you know. And so I go to the house, pick her up. We pick them up, and then we head to the club and shit. So when we get in the club, we had a reservation, you know, we had a table reserved for us. So we sit down at the table and shit. We chilling, you know, the music is really loud. So when we talking to each other, we got to basically yell at each other. And, you know, we was probably sitting there for like an hour. And my friend was like, hey, we gonna have to move to another table. She's like, my sister's boyfriend is going to come and join us. And I said, oh, okay, cool. No problem. So we moved to a different table and shit. And so eventually, you know, the sister, she get up to go, you know, help him find a parking space, meet him outside and shit, you know. And so me and the friend, we just still sitting here chilling, talking, whatever. And all of a sudden I feel a tap on my shoulder. So when I turn around and shit, I see, you know, my friend's sister with Kevin. So when I turn to look, you know, I was like, you know, kind of like, oh shit. Oh, this is who she going with, you know. And when he seen me, his eyes kind of bugged. And so she was like, hey, Keiki, this is my boyfriend, Kevin. And so then Kevin was like, hey, Keiki, how's it going? And he stuck his hand out to shake my hand, and I moved back. I'm like, Kevin? I'm like, I know Kevin. He was my supervisor at Old Country Buffet, you know. And he was like, oh, well, yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, like, nigga, you know who the hell I am. You know who I am. He was trying to play it off, telling me, hey, Keiki, how are you doing? Like, you acting like you ain't know who I was. But I got them together real quick. I'm like, oh, I know Kevin. He used to be my supervisor at Old Country Buffet. And she was like, oh, really? So you do know each other? Yeah. Me and Kevin started to date when he started to work at Old Country Buffet. And I said, oh, really? And I'm thinking in my head, like, and your nigga was around there flirting with everybody. I said, so, you know, this whole time you in a relationship and you carrying on like this with these girls at the job. Shit, the way he was acting, you would have thought he was single. He as flirty as what he was with them girls. And I wouldn't be surprised if his ass slept with one of them. Because it was that sexual tension like that, you know, with his ass. So she's like, yeah, you know, we that's when we first started to date, when he started working there. And I said, oh, really? You know, so they go sit down, you know, and shit. And it's like the whole time they in the club, they arguing with each other. They going back and forth and shit, messing up the vibe. Really, just messing up the vibe. So I guess my friend got tired of them getting into it. And she like, I'm about to go to the bathroom. Come on, sis, come into the bathroom with me. Keiki, do you got to go to the bathroom? I'm like, no, I'm good. So they left. So, you know, it was me, the friend, the sister, and, you know, Kevin at the end. So when they left, you know, we had that space in between each other. And I was just, you know, listening to music. I wasn't paying attention to him. I just kept my head turned, you know, just not even paying attention to him. But out the corner of my eye, I can see him moving close to me, you know. So he finally sit next to me, and I look at him, and he was like, Keiki, I just want to tell you that I'm sorry about what happened with us at Old Country Buffet. You know, James told me that the reason why you left was because of, you know, me and how I treated you and, you know, stuff like that. And I just looked at him and was like, bro, that was 3 years ago. And that's all I said. I said, that was 3 years ago. you know. And he was like, well, I know, but, you know, you was a good worker and you left because of me and shit, you know. And I'm like, that was 3 years ago. And I just kept moving and grooving to the music and shit. So he was like, I just want to say that I'm sorry again. And then he went back to his seat and shit. And by that time he came out, you know, his girlfriend and my friend came out and sat back down and shit. And I mean, they just was just bickering the whole night to the point where they got into it so bad that the sister came up to us and was just like, because we was on the dance floor at the time, and she came up to us on the dance floor and she was just like, you know, we're gonna go, he's really pissing me off and this and that and blah blah blah. So they end up leaving and shit. But and then me and the friend, we just stayed there till the club closed, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of this story time. But it just goes to show you that your motherfucking supervisors can be your worst enemy too, you know. Like, for real. Then the fact that the man gonna try to act like he ain't know who I was when we met each other, it was crazy to me, you know. But yeah, I had to get the hell up out of there because I couldn't work that hot bar. I needed to get to the moolah. That's the whole reason I took that job, because I was trying to get some extra money so I can save up to get me a car. Because I was in college and I was, you know, I needed my own transportation, for real. So that's why I took on that job. And when I left that job, I was still working another job too, you know. So I ain't just dip out of there and didn't have nowhere to work, you know. I didn't have no job. I was still working my other job too. So, you know, I was cool with getting the fuck up out of there. I can't be sitting up here with a supervisor that just straight up don't like my ass and trying to make my life hell because you got issues, because you're upset that I'm not all up your ass like the rest of these people is. You feel me? So, but yeah. So that's that story time for y'all ass, okay? And I'm gonna get my ass the hell up out of here on you. But yeah, just, you know, if the energy ain't right with the supervisor, you just know you about to have a hell of a time at the job. Like, if you and your supervisor don't get along, and you can not even do anything to their ass, you feel me? And they'll have a problem with your punk ass, you know. Like, that shit was crazy as hell. Put me on a damn hot bar, knowing damn well that's not what I got hired to do. Punk ass nigga.